Hello, my beautiful friend, and welcome to this episode of Angels Don't Lie. I'm your host, Jeannie Street, and today I have another yummy episode for you. Today I'm talking to Dr. Lenore Matthews, and she is a psychic medium, and I'm so excited to have her on the show. Her story is one that will touch you so deeply. She lost her husband and found out after his death by suicide that he was guiding her from heaven, leading her to dive into her own gifts as a medium. She didn't even know that she was a medium, and she's taken this so seriously. She's leaned in and gone the distance with God to open up and even offer her resources for other mediums, and she's doing amazing things. So you're going to find out more in this episode. I don't want to give it all away, but it's super yummy. And in this time that we're living in, this age of the healer, like you've heard me talk about this, her work is so needed. And listen, if you haven't signed up for my angel party, there's still time. It's happening next Tuesday, February 28th, and it's from home. So you're going to hop on a call with me and come join this like-minded community. We're going to go on a beautiful heavenly experience. You're going to go into the heavenly realm, receive your messages, and we're going to come back and commune together. And then I'm going to deliver messages. You're going to find out all about my programs, and we're going to really spend some quality time tapping into the heavenly realm. You're going to love it. So tickets are available. Link is below the show notes, and I can't wait to see you there. So enjoy today's episode.
When she smiles at you, she'll say, angels don't lie. Angels don't lie. Angels don't lie. No, no, angels don't lie. Angels don't lie. No, 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 no.
Hi.
Hello, good morning. Hi, pleasure.
I'm like literally so excited. I just actually went to the bathroom and I'm like, God, I'm just so excited to meet her. I'm like, yeah.
Well, it's likewise. I've been thinking, I've been up for a while. It's 8 a.m. here in Hawaii.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've been up for a while and I was just like, oh my goodness, this talk is so necessary and it's so needed for so many people. I think in my audience, so I can't necessarily answer some of their questions with regard to how religion plays into mediumship, and I know that I'll bring some other aspects to it as well. So I just think this is so important. I'm so excited. Full circle, always.
Yes. First, your husband's here. Like he just is like so intricate in this, in like arranging all of this.
Yeah.
I don't even know how you came into my view, but like randomly, I think it was on Instagram. I think I saw you and I was like, oh, okay. Yes. All right. I love this. This is a great conversation, and your energy, everything spoke. And I was like, definitely want to chat with her about your gifts and, what it looks like for you going from maybe like this person who was sensitive to energy, but then was like cracked open. And what was that like for you?
Oh my goodness. So it was, my world was turned upside down. My ability of mediumship opened up the night that my husband passed away. That night he passed around 11 a.m. and it was, that evening was the first time he came to me.
Okay.
I recognized after he had passed that it was 3 months that I had been having visceral psychic and premonition experiences. So I was having predictive dreams.
Yes.
I was having visions that I hadn't, clairvoyant visions, and I hadn't necessarily had those before. If I had totally blocked them out, and it must have been as a child. Now, after having worked as a medium for a few years and having trained, I do understand that there were some instances when I was younger where I would have had these, but I didn't understand them. I blocked them out. I was a child. It didn't make sense to me as something important. But the night that Bruno passed away was the first night he came to me, and it was incredible, and I'll never forget the experience. And he just flooded my body with his energy. And it was like, when someone opens the door, someone that we know, and we're familiar with them, and we love them, we trust them, we know their energy, we know that they're there whether we see them. And it was like that, except the door was open to my body. And he flooded me and gave me very specific messages about what he wanted with his cremation, with his celebration of life. We'd never talked about passing before. We're in our mid-30s, young in love, married, and he passed by taking his own life, and there were no signs. And so I had no idea that death or end of life was on our radar, because there were no signs that was even an issue. But when he came to me, and having never spoken about death, we hadn't talked about, funerals. In my mind, we had 5 decades before this would even be an issue. And when he flooded my body, it was him, it was Bruno. And I remember we were in a hotel. I was there with some of our friends who had come with me to the police station when he passed, because that's where they told us that it was suicide. And it was just, when something traumatic happens, when the passing of a loved one happens, and especially if it's unexpected, and especially if it's by, particularly gruesome and morbid means, your world is just torn apart. There's no sense of reality. I felt like I was on, I don't know, like in another world.
Like watching a movie, like something like it's fake.
It felt
That's
like
the feeling.
a movie. Absolutely. And when he flooded me, having never spoken about passing before, and death and funerals or any of this, he came into my body and he showed me the word that kept coming to mind. It was in Spanish. It was the word rabia. So we spoke English and Spanish together. He was from Argentina. Rabia. And that means like fury. Like I could tell he was furious, and I could tell he was furious with himself. And I didn't understand that at the time. And it took me years until I really understood exactly, now working as a medium, what it is like working with people who've taken their life on the other side. But that was his initial reaction that he gave to me. And then very gently, he came into me and showed me, all of a sudden, I'm on the bank of a river with him. And this is all clairvoyant. And again, I'd never had these visceral experiences before. But I had been practicing meditation already for a couple of months before this happened. I think my soul kind of knew what was happening, what was on the horizon. And so I developed a meditation practice, which really was one of my pillars of healing as well. But because of that practice, I feel that that's one of the keys that opened me up to Bruno's energy. And I fell into a deep meditation. I'm on a bank of a river. It's this purple brown water. I know exactly where we are. We're on the bank of the river in his hometown. I can smell around me like barbecue, and I can hear music, and I can see people around me in shorts and flip-flops and soccer jerseys. And I can feel that Bruno's there, but he's not there. And I can feel this juxtaposition of from the people that are around me, of both this like reverence and love and just admiration amidst intense grief. And I know what he's telling me is he doesn't want a funeral. He wants a celebration of life. This is it. And he wants to be cremated with his ashes offered to the river.
I love how you just even explained it. And I know you have some amazing programs and things that you offer people, and I do as well. And it's one of the things I was just talking to my mastery students about when a message comes through, you might want to stay quickly and just sign off and be like, that's it. But when you open up your senses a little further in heaven, what happens is you have more of a visceral experience, and then it starts to tell the full story. And I think where so many people, wonder and question and doubt is they just get that one like tap in, and then they shut it off. Like, why is he by a river? It's not by the river, and then close it off.
Yeah.
But it is a meditation. It is a form of like going from that head into the heart, letting go, and then allowing the imagination to go where God, where spirit is bringing you, so that you have that embodiment of it.
Absolutely. I love that you said that. Absolutely. So when I was having those very first premonitions and predictive dreams, and they weren't really predictive dreams in terms of things that were happening in the world. It was very much in terms of what would be happening in my life with Bruno. As my throat chakra tenses up, oh my goodness, excuse me. But it was that, and before he had passed, and there were so many signs looking back that spirit was just throwing at us, and it didn't line up with my logical mind. And so I didn't tap in, and I didn't know what they meant. Frankly, they scared me.
Can we just pause for 1 second? Just because I think there's a difference. And I think it would be really great for people that have a gift to understand when we do get prediction dreams and we're not plugged into heaven, they can be earthbound and be very scary and not be necessarily about our own life or give the whole view where there's no free will. But when God is showing us a light, he's guiding us so that we can start doing our work. And it's not about like giving us everything, but he knows our soul the best, and he knows what we're going to be going through so that we can lean in. And like you said, it's shot, but like you had no idea what that was going to even freaking mean.
Yeah. Thank you so much for saying that, because yes. And I don't know that the word prediction is even, we use it in psychic work, but I don't know that that's necessarily the best. I love that, the shedding light on. Yeah. And if I had listened, or if I had known how to feel into that without being scared of it, like, for example, one of the predictive, quote unquote, predictive, because ultimately it did happen. But one of the insights, let's call it that I got before my husband passed was I saw his funeral in a clairvoyant vision. And
maybe this is a whole class of like, what's a prediction and what's a, what is light being shown on, so that you can, learn to navigate that. How do we slow it down?
Yes.
Oh my God, I love that.
Yes. And I think by then I know my husband had written his suicide letters. I don't know that it was not. I feel that what it is, looking back and understanding now, it was a call from our souls. It was a call from spirit. It was a call to please pay attention, that there's a point of intervention here that could happen.
Right.
That's what it is.
Right.
And so it wasn't like this is the path and there's no way to turn back. Right. And it wasn't either rather, that, it's so easy to turn around, because looking at this from the scientific perspective, so a doctor of mental health, right, or a social work, of mental health, of once someone is in this cycle of suicidal ideation, it does call for a very strong intervention to bring them into a safe space. But I feel that looking back, and I forgive myself, I forgive Bruno for not understanding it, because how could we? We had no other information that would help us think otherwise. But knowing then that these kind of insights, they're not there to scare us, and they're not there to say that this is some horrible fate. It's more to say it's like, I look at it as spirit is kind of calling the shots in terms of like, we're all hands are on deck. We are giving this to you as strongly as possible, because please listen to us. And ultimately, even though things happened how they did with my husband's passing a couple weeks after I had those first visions, looking back now, it's incredibly valuable and meaningful and loving to me, because A, I understand how they fit into my life now, and B, I can speak about them. I wrote an article and published it last year about trusting our intuition, our gut feeling, but also when we get these kind of very strange, sometimes knowings, of feeling into them and giving them weight and giving them attention that they deserve, rather than, shutting out or assuming, we're imagining them or they're nuts, right, or whatever it is. And I think that's really the lesson that I took away from this.
And I think there's another level. So when my grandfather passed, I just want to kind of share this with you. I had, and Jesus is, it'd be 27 years in March. But I was having dreams, and he lived right down the road from me. So we were together all the time. And at the time I had just had my fourth baby, and I hadn't had a lot of time to have him over for dinner or whatever. And he would sometimes help me with the older kids, getting them off the bus, or with my 3-year-old. He was just, he was my friend. He was my pal. And so I was having these dreams that I was going to find him. And they weren't full story lengths. They were just like little, like the chair was empty. He's not in the house. And this is even before I started to really understand my gift or really acknowledge it. I was like, everybody else has this gift. And I was just reading all the books and being like, that's so cool. But again, I was dreaming, I was having these, visceral experiences in my sleep, and departed loved ones were coming to me. And I thought, I'm just making it up, poo poo.
Yep.
So I really understand where you were with that kind of experience, and the difference between having like a prediction and plugging in like to earth and like seeing events happen, and just like, it leaves you with like a lull, dull feeling. And also I've seen clients, and I'm sure you have as well, where they might have had that view and then held themselves in guilt. Like, I should have done something because I saw that. But that isn't why we're getting that information. It's not why we're having that flow come to us to have like, you could have stopped it, because no, it's not, that wasn't your role.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that. That was, I mean, the night after he passed, right before he came to me in that first experience that I spoke about before in the beginning, one of my first thoughts was, oh my goodness, like I saw this. I knew that it would happen. How could I forgive myself for not doing something? And it was really this process of working with my husband of spirit of, that was never your job. We as human beings, whether we're a wife, whether we're a social worker, whether we're a medium, it's not our job to save someone. We're not super people. We can't do that. But what we can do then is tap into that information and what it means for us. And really, apply that in a way with love and gratitude, so that it positively affects our lives and then whomever we touch, whether it's through work or family, friends, whomever. And thank you so much for bringing up that guilt piece, because I had it. I know that several of my clients have as well. And
I did as well too. Like, I thought if I had stayed longer in the vision, if I prayed more, I thought all of these things that I could have prevented what happened. But then, I love how spirit works. I kept getting this song that was really relevant. It's a Garth Brooks song, and it was like, I'm glad I didn't know how it all would go. And I replayed that song over and over. That was like my mantra. And I kept reminding myself, I'm glad I didn't know how it all would end, how it all would go, because our lives are better left to chance.
Yes.
And as a medium and as a psychic, as someone who can tap into energy, I think it's one of the most important things we can lead with is, it's not about knowing the end result. It's about navigating where we are right here.
Yes.
You're living that example. And I was watching you in were you in the Northern Lights in Alaska?
I was
and I was like, oh, she's living this like dream, like you're living in the moment. It's a moment. And I'm so happy that you shared it, because I felt it. Like, I literally felt the energy of you accepting all of the moment, and it's not always easy.
No, it's not. And it's that trust that builds over time. And I mean, that trip was a completely was it spontaneous? I don't know. Or spontaneous. Sure. Right. Maybe I think it was probably planned for a long time somewhere in the ethers, but I'd been seeing the Northern Lights in my meditations for months, and it aligned to go on that trip overnight.
My husband and I are going to go, because it's been coming to us, and I'm like, I'm not sure when, but we're seeing the same thing. So amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
So I love that your husband Bruno is working with you in that this spirit team, this new form of relationship that you have. That he
just got goosebumps as you said that.
He's like, he really loves the work, right? He's like so excited and lit up about it. I almost feel, and I don't know if you got this with him too, like almost like he wasn't in his body. Like, he wasn't even like the full embodiment of who he is as a soul. Like, you were able to see it because of your gifts, but he wasn't really living it, but you saw it, and like, he couldn't grasp it. So almost like he was wearing somebody else's clothes, that feeling of, I don't know if you ever, I call that the Edgar suit, like from Men in Black, when, the guy's walking around, but it's not really him because the alien's in his body. And they're like, it's like he was wearing an Edgar suit. I kind of almost feel like that for your husband. Like, he was deeply sensitive and so outside of his own being.
Yes, yes, yeah. Well, he's a Pisces through and through for one. So so spiritual, but that yes, and I didn't understand it. And I would tell
Mm,
him, and I still do. And it's looking back, it maybe wasn't the fairest thing to say, but it's how I felt and how I feel. I would look at him and just say, "You are perfect. Like, how
mm,
can someone be so perfect? You are everything that perfection is and more." And he would get kind of, I mean, we were together for 13 years, so it's not like, this came out of nowhere, but it was just, I was so just in awe of him. And everybody was. He was, I mean, he's
yeah.
superhuman in so many ways. But with him in spirit now, and it's been through this long process of unpacking and helping each other heal through what he went through. So it came out that he was horrifically abused as a child for many years,
Mm,
sexually abused. And he didn't let that be known until what he left written and other documents and other information when before, well, he wrote it before he passed. And then when he passed, I found it. And then there were more pieces that uncovered after his passing. And it was like this reconstruction for me on one hand of like our relationship. Like, was this real? Did I even
mm,
know him? But then at the core of it was, no, it's Bruno and I, like, we're connected through this like cord between our hearts and our stomachs, our guts.
mm.
And it's like, we're each other. And now when I feel him, because of this deep work that we've done together and that he's done on the other side, and he's let me see snippets of it, but that's his sacred work as well. And I'm sure he'll tell me all about it someday when I'm over there and can really understand, because I can't even fully understand it here, even being a medium. But he's big now, and
Mhm. Shiny, right?
he's
His
cute.
energy is shiny.
Yes, and he's good. And as a
But I also want to say, like, how brave that he put it on paper.
yeah,
Like, for so many people that lose their loved ones to death by suicide, that aren't able to get to that place.
yeah,
And because of what you were doing in your energy, and because of what you were doing with your meditation, energetically, you were lining up and showing and teaching and leading him to be able to feel safe to let go of that in some way, shape, or form. And maybe it was, like, I don't know, just a freedom of some for him. Like, yeah. And
and a lot of
I
that
don't
has
know.
come through with the writing that we do now. I mean,
Mm,
there's this whole process, again, from a mental health perspective, of someone who's gone through abuse, who's been told to hide it for their entire
mhm,
life. That's been reiterated in the system in which they're in for many reasons, to keep it a secret. And really the uncovering of what he went through came through the depths of the work that we've done together
mm,
after. And that's where, and with people that he loves, his friends, for example, just knowing what happened to him and loving him anyway. And
mhm,
and we know this as mediums, and we know this with, I'm sure many of the people listening know that, I mean, when we pass in our spirits, we're not just imprints of memory. We are very much alive, conscious, intelligent people. So he's still growing and healing on the other side as we're uncovering this. And so I could feel him like being okay with really embodying feeling still quite shameful and ashamed of what happened. And then as he's seeing how we're reacting when we find out, like, I loved him even more, and our love is even more transparent as I found it. And then I feel him saying, like, oh my goodness, it's different than what I thought it would be. And so
mm.
there are these like iterations that we still very much heal on the other side, because we are still
Yes.
tied to our human, but we're also on this other bigger plane where things are different and bigger.
And I love all of that. I feel like, yes, we are going to keep evolving. And from my understanding and the way that people have come through to me, is they are in that complete unconditional love. They don't have any tainted love, which we have here, where there's conditions on it. So where we might have a feeling of guilt or shame or wonderment, they don't have that. So while they're doing their work, it isn't about like, oh, I wish this. It's
Right.
rather more gentle and loving, and being able to forgive and release and just encompass more love. And it's really hard to put that into words for people that are in great grief and wondering, like, are they mad at me because I didn't make those right choices?
Right. I
Yeah.
remember I had a conversation with a mom who lost her son, and we were talking about that first experience that I have with Bruno telling me, like, I want to be cremated, I want my ashes offered here. And 6 weeks after Bruno passed, I saw my first medium. And very similar to what you were saying about these things are happening to you, but yet then you're reading books about mediums like, oh, wow, what they do is really great.
Right.
But I'm not a medium. No way. I mean, I was in denial for over a year and a half of this happening, while other people's spirits are coming to me and giving me visceral messages that I could validate. But with, I lost my train of thought there as another message is coming in.
The mother with her son who.
Thank you. Yes, sorry, I got contacted.
That's okay.
Yeah, so I saw my first medium and they validated everything. The cremation and the river and all of these things came into that medium. And to me, that was my first validation. One, that this is real, and two, that maybe I'm getting things from Bruno. This is actually, even though I knew it in my gut. But speaking to this mother who lost her son and she wasn't a medium. And she said, well, what about those of us who maybe chose something and we wonder if it wasn't the right thing, if we buried them in this plot, but they wanted that tree. I mean, how do they feel about it? And it was so clear from her son in that moment. I heard, you could have done it anyway, and it would have been perfect, because it's you and it's him and that love that you share. You would have done it with love and compassion, and anything that you would have chosen would be perfect. He's leading you in a certain way, and what you land on is led to wherever your connection says that this feels right. But really, it's not like, do it this way or else I'm furious. It's more, thank you for loving me.
It's a soul by soul thing. It's different for each of us. And there's we take into this consideration, there's a contract that we have. And so when we are in this great grief, whether we have a gift or not, it doesn't mean that we're always going to be shown what you were shown. That just happened to be your path with Bruno, your soul contract like that he could work through you so that you could also then receive that validation, so that you could also remember who you are, because God has a great plan. It is only of love, right?
Yes. Oh, that is so true. And goosebumps all over with that. Yes.
Yeah. So beautiful. And thank you for being so open to like just everything. Like, I feel so excited about it. I was on your website and I was looking, I was like doing all my stuff. You have a really cool new program you're launching. I don't know if it's a program, but do you want to explain that a little bit?
Yes. So I have a couple things going. The one that you might be referred to is the discovering your own intuitive gifts. Is that that one? Okay.
No, wait, is it called LabCorp?
Oh, the Living Lab. Yeah.
Living Lab. That was it. And I was like, ooh, I need to talk about this. Yes, I want to know about the other stuff too, but that's the one that just popped into me. I was like, I gotta know more.
Thank you for
I'm not the science girl. So I think that this is like, we're a perfect mix. I'm like all like, floaty God, love, I just know what I know. And you're gonna put like science to it. And I'm like, yes, we're gonna be best friends. It's gonna be great. So.
I love that. Thank you for bringing that one up. I'm thinking about the other programs that I'm very excited about as well. But as soon as you say the Living Lab and the research, my whole body just lights up, and my face is this big geeky grin, and I'm excited. So actually, the idea came to me a few months ago in a Kundalini energy healing session with an incredible friend of mine who's also a suicide loss survivor of her brother. Her name is Rebecca Jacks. And I've been working in energy healing as part of my just survival the last few years. And things really shifted in the fall. It was about 2.5 years after Bruno had passed. And this project just opened up to me. So my background is in evaluation research, program evaluation. So I have a PhD in social work. I used to work in international human development organizations. And basically what I would do is evaluate or assess different programs and policies and how well they do or don't meet human needs, impact people's well-being, health, mental health, physical health. So that's where I come from in my training. And I had done that for many, many, many years. And that part of me, that researcher part of me, is still a part of me. As extroverted as I am, I also love to sit by myself with my laptop in my lab and run statistical models and search and read. And
I love you, geeky. I love it.
I'm a total closet nerd. I'm not so closet. I'm very nerdy. But
Oh,
that's a part of me. It's like I'm a Libra. So it's this yin and yang. Part of it's a spiritual and part of it's a
yeah.
scientific. So it came to me in this energy healing and it feels so right. And I know, and I've known that part of my purpose is to bring my very grounded evidential side. And the fact that my specialization is an evidence-based practice and evaluation. It's like literally my job was,
Right.
I don't believe it unless there's evidence. Show me the data, show me the
Right.
evidence. I need the numbers or the
Right.
quotes to speak to me in a way that actually, validates this. And I weave that very much into my mediumship as well. If it's not evidential, then, there's evidence somewhere, if anything, of how the feeling
Right.
is soulful, et cetera. So the program, long-winded, back to the beginning, sorry about that. So what I'll be doing with the Living Lab is I'm launching a few studies of my own and then working with other healers, including mediums, to evaluate their work. So the two studies that I'm launching right now, and these are investigative, they're qualitative research. So that means talking to people in interviews, also doing some questionnaires and surveys, but really getting the lived experience through words. And the first is on how mediumship affects widows' grieving process.
Wow.
And also mental and spiritual and emotional health.
Right.
And so I'm working with very in-depth interviews and processes of multiple encounters with a handful of widows who are not mediums. They were clients of mine, and then we're working with a couple other readings and then interviews to really capture both that, that like high that comes from a mediumship reading, but also then the time that elapses after when you've integrated mediumship into your life. And the preliminary findings are incredible. I don't want to spoil it yet because I want to analyze all the data before I really put it out there. But it's more or less showing that, well, first of all, mediumship is an incredible tool for healing grief.
Yes.
And the women that I'm working with, they're all women in my study by chance or by coincidence, or not, but most of them are very skeptical. A few had a very scientific or a different religious orientation before that have prevented or not prevented, but been, an obstacle to seeing mediums, or they wouldn't have had a reason to see mediums. I didn't either before. And the way that mediumship has helped them in their grieving process of understanding their grief in the bigger picture, connecting them to their loved one, opening them up to new activities and pathways and spiritual practices, and also just things in life that they enjoy. It's incredible the impact that it's had. And there are also implications for mental health practitioners in terms of grieving isn't this process where we close at the end and then we move on to life. Right. And if we integrate a perspective that's more spiritual and intuitive that connects us to our loved ones, it opens this door to this continued, it's not a closed circle, life cycle of grief. It's more this open path. And mediumship is really a mediator to that. It opens us up to that. And then the second study that I'm doing is, I'll just be quick on that one. It's on investigating other people's whose mediumship opened up after a loved one passed.
I think what you're doing for me, is, I think when I read it, I was like, this is a breakthrough for understanding the gift that God has given us in terms of yes, everybody can have a connection with their loved one. They can have this experience. It doesn't mean that every person is called to be a medium. And I believe that you can train and use your muscles, but it doesn't mean that it's God calling. God calling is you're going to know, it's going to be right there. And it's going to be like, okay, I'm going to use my gift in this way. And your gift is going to really open the gateway to understand how this will really help people to move through grief, to remember we're not alone. And it's just going to put so much energy to it. So I think I don't know if you watched the Long Island Medium, but she really gave a name to women medium. She really was a person who stood forward to say women have this really beautiful gift, and we can be fun, we can be light. And she opened the world for us in many ways. And I was there were others that pioneered before her as well, obviously, but because she was on TV, it just gave a sense of yep, we're safe to go here. Yeah.
So true. So true. And as the like part B to the living lab, the name also came in the energy healing. Like, okay, whatever you say, spirit. I love the name. Way to go. Use that alliteration. But the second part of that is working with other healers and both evaluating their work with them, especially with trauma and grief survivors, but then teaching them how to evaluate it. So how do we capture and how do we convey how impactful our work is? How do we let people know beyond testimonials? And testimonials are the foundation really of our work, but it's beyond that. It's like, how do we show that people's lives are better, that people are freer, that we live bigger, that we live happier,
and maybe even healthier, like maybe
healthier.
even,
Yes, all of these things. I mean, since mediumship opened up, my physical body is so much healthier, just because when we follow the energy and when it leads us, I mean, I don't drink alcohol anymore. I used to love wine. I don't drink alcohol. I eat plant-based. I do all of these physical activities because it's empowering and it feels good and aligned with
good.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is the stuff that happens when we work through, and I don't feel when we work through a spiritual perspective, but I don't think it's a spiritual alone. It's the mind, it's the mental health, plus the physical body, plus the spiritual. And to me, it's all the core of this is our intuition. So our own connection to our soul of where am I going? You know, what is my path? What is my dharma?
Yes, absolutely. I literally just had a beautiful reading this morning with a woman who I've read her before, and it was like night and day, where I hadn't talked to her since November, and she reached out and we did this 30-minute, just a quick kind of connection again. And I'm like, you sound like a different person. And she said those words. She said, I wouldn't be where I am without this, you know, this guidance, this support that came through you. And I'm so appreciative. And of course, like it's not of me, it's of God. And so the praise is like, thank you for serving this woman. I also get to heal and grow just from being with her. And it's just wonderful on so many levels.
It is. And I've talked about this on podcasts before, but there's something, and I don't know what it is, but as a scientist, I hope that I can ascertain it and actually capture it and measure it someday. But when we work with mediums, there are the messages and the growth that comes from that and knowing, and it's all channeled. We can't make this up. I mean, the things that come through are so big that it's beyond what our cognitive mind can create. But there are the messages, there's the guidance, there's the affirmation and confirmation that what we thought we know is true. But then there's also this physiological healing that happens from the energy. It's like, I feel it in my body, it physically shifts. And that's the part that I hope to somehow capture. It's the spiritual healing. And that doesn't come from, and those are like the moments of elation, of joy, but it's bigger than that. It's different. Yeah. And that comes when someone's soul, and you can feel it in the energy. Again, you can also feel if it's not quite right. If we've sat, and I know I have sat with mediums, so it's like, no, the energy isn't quite there. Like I can feel it's off. But that healing aspect is another part. And I have sat with people as well, sitting here multiple times, and we feel the evolution, we feel the growth, but then we also feel, and I've been there many times myself, especially after Bruno passed, where we feel that we're in another trough in the pain. It's not necessarily going backward, it's almost going forward into a new dimension of pain, or it comes back.
I call it it's like an onion. You know, when you cut an onion, there's all these layers and layers and layers. And yeah, you're going to peel some layers back, and you're going to have that layer to go through again, because in this time it might not be exactly the same as the last time. You're going to be lighter. Maybe there's just more room for forgiveness or more room for releasing that energy. But time is not a thing in heaven. And so healing happens in the right time, and things are presented as like, we might want to force it, but it's not a one and done. It's not like, oh, okay, your grief is done and you're never going to be sad again. It's going to ebb and flow. And, there's going to be days it might take your breath away like that onion, and days that you might just not be tearing, and you might not have the same emotion of like sobbing, but it's just bringing those tears through. So it's just a matter of allowing it to move, not stopping it or trying to control it. Right.
Absolutely. So in the fall, again, it had been 2.5 years, and I had been, I don't know, doing well, whatever that means, but, living my life and,
Yeah.
getting out there, living, trying to live. And I just, it was around September, it was just, there was obviously a trigger. So that's usually what happens. And I was just like, I can't, I'm so exhausted. I can't do this anymore. And so I called my first medium, who's now a wonderful friend of mine and a colleague, but I called him and said, can we do a reading? And put away the friendship side, like, be my medium today. And as soon as I get on the call, he's like, you can't lie to a psychic medium. Like, I know exactly what's happening. Yes. It's like, I know, you see through and through. That's probably subconsciously why I called. But we worked through what we did. And that was a huge shift for me. But all of as a sitter, all of the big readings that I do with people, of course, as mediums, we're always working with friends and always doing mini readings and all these things, right? But the big readings that I do, I record them. And I, to all my clients, because recording has been so impactful for me, I always offer to record for them and then send it to them. It's for them, not me. And I have found when I am in those deep troughs again, if I listen to the recording, it's not just the information, again, it's the energy of it comes back, and it's almost like another boost. Right. And it's okay. And the messages mean something different over time and the iterations. So those are very practical tools as well, and ways that mediumship keeps giving. It's the moment in the connection, but it's all of the integration and the reliving it afterwards as well.
Right. I found myself in the beginning when I was first reading, because I came from that, like a place of like having zero confidence, of being deeply, deeply insecure. So I had my own trauma, my own energy. And so what I found was I would judge everything that I was doing, that it wasn't enough. And I would do group readings and it would be amazing, but I would walk away slamming myself and being like, this is not good. And actually I could cry just even thinking about like how mean I was. And then I started bringing an assistant with me and then talking it over and saying like, this was wrong, this was wrong, this was wrong. And they were like, well, actually, no, they would circle back and share what was actually said. And it's a funny how trauma can do that to you, even when you're in that light. And so when the words were served back to me, and because she was taking notes, I was able to receive them because it wasn't my voice. So it's really interesting. This work is all around healing, not only other people, but your own self.
Yes.
Right. Now I'm finally in this beautiful place where I'm not criticizing what I'm doing. I'm loving it and just holding space. Like, this is enough. Like, I always thought I had to keep going further, like it wasn't enough.
Yeah.
So I found this pause and allowing it to have to marinate, so they could integrate what was coming through instead of bombarding with like more and more and calling more people through and more people. No, it's okay. Like, just even if it's one person that comes through in a reading, it's enough. Like, if God shows that, that's what I have to do, instead of going past and pushing and being like, I want more over here, I'm needy.
Absolutely. And sometimes that's in my experience as well as a sitter, like sometimes I only want to hear from one person. I'm there for my husband, but then sometimes my grandparents come through and an auntie, and it's like, okay, you wanted Bruno, but the whole brood is coming in today. So get what you get.
So yeah, I love that our work is going to bring us through our own healing as well as really support others. So I think because we have experiences, that's what will be used to really help your clients go further, because you emotionally know what it feels like to lose someone.
Yeah.
The way you've gone through it.
Yeah. And I will say, if anyone is tuning in to this episode who is a developing medium, whose mediumship opened after their loved one passed, I do have to say, just, oh my goodness, give yourself time. And I was so eager to understand what this all meant. And, again, like, I was in denial that I was a medium for it. And as I say, like, in my throat just tightens up that I was like, I'm not a medium. This is so weird. This is crazy. Absolutely not. But then after I'd accepted and started developing as a medium, started going, to Arthur Findlay classes and Journey Within and working under other mediums, then it was like, okay, now it's like, all hands on deck, let's go. I'm ready to do this work to help other people. And that's when I really had my crash in last fall, the 2.5 years after this opened up. I was giving, and I would get emails from people like, you helped save my life. I didn't say that, it was their people in spirit, and I was channeled through me, but this helped save my life. I feel alive again. I feel like I've gotten, myself back. And I was so depleted because I'm sitting and I was doing, 15 readings a week, and I'm sitting in grief. And then I scaled that back, but still like sitting in the grief that would just sit in my body and open things up for me.
Right.
And it wasn't when I was doing readings, it's more like the before and after, when I'm sitting with the pain.
No, because the reading part is like the miracle part, right?
Miracle, yes.
You want to be there. Like, I want to be in that groovy. I said that to my assistant, like, give me a class and I'm teaching, or let me read. And then afterwards, I'm going to take my hot bath and I'm going to be like toast. I'm going to be out, like, and I need to like, come back in. Yep. And I agree. Like in the beginning, I think we want so much to serve other people or to help them that we will tend to overgive, not realizing that we can only give from the level of love in which we're holding for ourselves.
Oh, that was so true. That is so true. And that was so true with where I was. So I stopped doing readings. I got very sick. My body physically always sick when I'm tapped out. And I told Spirit, I said, listen, guys, who's ever listening, wherever you are.
Right.
And I said, I will continue doing mediumship. I love this, but you've got to give it to me in a different way. More light, more joy. I'm not settling for anything else. Right. And I take time off. I really focused on my human self, of my physical body, spending time with my family. I traveled for the first time. Bruno and I used to travel. We lived all over the world, and I hadn't traveled since he had passed. And so that was a huge, I don't know, like reclaiming, I think, for me.
Yep.
And then it came back, and that's when Living Lab opened up. Like, nope, I'm still the researcher. I still love that side. Yeah. This is the part. And then I've gone back to doing readings, one kind of aspect in terms of the research that I'm doing. So really researching and assessing how that works. Then also, I'm working with other mediums in group settings, which to me is like, this is so much fun. I love working with other mediums. The energy is high, and that's a place one-on-ones are just, it's still maybe too early in my grief. I've learned, and I'm glad that I went through doing that, 1.5 years of a lot of one-on-ones, but now it's like, nope, it's a lot of people in a room. Let's all heal together. And it'll probably change. It always does. It always evolves, but that's where it is.
Yeah. And I love that, when we let go, that what needs to be kind of transpires. And, again, like as you're growing your muscle, as you're learning to understand your own gift, you might make those mistakes of like doing all of those readings. And I remember I did this, I don't know if you ever did those psychic fairs, but I was like, okay, I'm going to go do a psychic fair. And my angels were like, oh, okay, you're going to bring a crystal ball. Like they were so funny with me. And I was like, what? Like I was like, wait, isn't this what I'm supposed to do? And they're like, no, but if that's what you want to do, it's fine. Because my work is healing. My work is like very sacred and holding space for that. So I've let go of some, the same thing, like let go of some, like doing too many readings in a week. Like, and if I'm doing a live one, if I'm doing an in-person event, I clear the slate, day before, day after, so that I'm really reserving my energy for myself. So I feel good. And then I show up cause I don't want to crash and burn and be like it's hard on your body. Like it just is. So yeah,
it is. It's very hard. Mediumship can be hard. And especially I wonder, I'm such a physical medium. And so I get
yes, me too.
Okay. So our bodies feel it.
Yes.
I had a reading a little while ago with someone who had IBS and I was feeling it in my own body. For people that had, who passed from substance overdose, and I'll feel what substances feel like in my body, even though I've never actually as a human used those substances. Right. So I've wondered, it's just, I know it's not harmful, but it's also new. And so it's learning how to process that in a way that feels okay with my energy without depleting. And then the scientist side of me just wants to understand it, investigate it all.
Yeah. And then being able to unplug afterwards. Like I was very acutely aware. They showed me very early on this energy of being an empath and a medium, of taking on the energy. It actually can change your DNA. it can change your DNA. So you can end up having surgery for something that wasn't yours in the beginning if you're not processing and clearing your energy.
Mhm.
So that is one thing that I learned very early on. So you're going to research that and let me know how that comes out.
Oh
And
my gosh, yeah. I can't wait to start working and researching. I'm starting to pen it now. Now it's on air, so it has to happen. It will happen. But start working with mediums and like really empowering our voice and saying, this is what the field looks like. This is where we're going. These are some of the issues that we want scientists to look at and, and understand. There's one thing I wanted to say, kind of backing up a little bit about what you were saying about working with, how many readings you do a week, et cetera. There is, and also tying into even your mention of Teresa Caputo, Long Island medium at the beginning of really putting women on the map. And I totally agree with you. So as we are opening up to our gifts, and I'm sure there are developing mediums who are listening, as we're opening up and really understanding what our path is, one is being open and knowing that the iterations will take us in different places, and that's totally great, cool, that's how it's supposed to be. But also knowing that I do feel this in my whole heart and soul, that as we're moving into this different phase of kind of normalizing scientific merging with spiritual, we're beginning to understand that mediumship isn't just, it's not all charlatans trying to make a buck or on a boardwalk somewhere. It's not that. This is actually something that's real, and science is showing that. There are paths that we as intuitives are forging that haven't been forged before. And so to know that we don't all have to be the next, we don't all have to be, and we won't all be the next Teresa on stage or one-on-one medium. There are a billion plus ways to do mediumship that we haven't even discovered yet. And that, right? It's part of the fun. It's also part of the intimidation. And so it's scary because we don't necessarily have a model to look towards, but that's the beauty of it.
Yes.
And so when we just dive in, be open, I feel like there's going to be this wave, and I'm seeing it working with my clients, or I'm sorry, with my colleagues rather, who are mental health practitioners and mediums. We're forging new, and goosebumps all over, new territory. We're diving into new frontiers that don't exist yet. And so be open to it, be excited. You're not alone in your path. If you're like, where am I going? But it is guided and there is a reason for it.
And it literally is so hard not to compare yourself to someone else, because that is something that it has been really thick and really heavy in energy. And, when someone comes into my program or comes to hang out and work with me, and I'm sure they do with you, you let them know like their brilliance and their greatness is so needed. We don't need another one of, me or, Teresa Caputo. Like, they're exactly who they are, but we want this person to come and shine, and really like helping them to clean up their life in the way that makes sense for them and use their gifts, because not everyone is going to use them in one-on-one sessions or in group sessions. They might use it to write a book. They might, like you said, there's all of these new paths, and they might use it to help people cross over. There's just so much goodness that we can do with our gift where we're being called.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like in the beginning as well, we're sort of attracted to all the shiny objects, like psychic detective work and working with cold cases. And then I did some crossover work, and I work a lot with children who have gone through abuse, both on this side and on the other side. And it's like, whatever it is in that moment, it's not like we have to, and I feel like now where we are in society, especially with, Instagram bios and things like that, we have to define who we are in a box.
Right.
This work, we might have a wave of doing psychic detection work, and then we might have a wave of doing healing and a wave of Reiki, and that's okay. And it's all just adding to our toolbox, is adding to our energy, but it's also just adding to the healing work, exactly as you said. And I so agree with other people, but ourselves as well. There's a reason we're attracted to what we're attracted to, even if it's only for a week or, a year.
Yeah, a week. I know. I've done that too. Like, I mean, I wore many hats before I actually came out of my medium closet and just decided okay, I better start doing this. So I closed my shoe store and I was like, I'm going all in. And my husband would be like, well, all right, what are you doing now? Because I did it all. I literally had a little daycare, or I had, I cleaned houses, or I worked at Macy's behind a makeup counter. I did so many things, waitress, and then I was like, I gotta be me. I gotta be me. I gotta get this book out of me that's been calling. And I started leaning in with that love. And I think that's the thing I can give as a gift is like what you feel is that semblance of love. Is if it's scaring you, look at that.
Yep.
Look more at that.
Oh, so true. So true.
Mm.
So true.
So I feel that for you. I feel like you and your husband are going to write a book.
Oh, yeah.
And oh yeah. Okay, good. So I'm glad you got it too. I was like, oh, okay. So I'll tell her you guys are going to write a book. I don't know how you're going to write that as a co-author. He's like, but it's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. We've been working. He showed me that the 2 days after he passed, and I was
Okay.
like, I know, I got it. Gotcha. And it's gone through iterations as well, because parallel to this beautiful mediumship experience, that also was sometimes quite scary when I didn't understand
Yeah.
it. In terms of, scary in terms of my whole life is turned over. But it's also, I mean, it's been grief, and especially traumatic and complex grief, it takes your life over. There's no break from it.
Mm.
And it'll be 3 years in exactly 2 weeks from today. And it feels so different, but it has been my full-time job for the almost 3 years of healing. It's been, I mean, I have not shied away from it, and for better or for worse, I don't know, but
Yeah, right.
grief it's omnipresent when this is where you are at. And so the mediumship side has, of course, been woven into that, and it's helped it. Sometimes it's also triggered some things, to be honest. But finally, I feel like both Bruno and I are in a place where there's some levity and a lot of clarity and some releasing. For me, there's been a release of, I don't need to feel him and receive his signs every, hour, every day.
Right.
But yeah, so now the book will come now that there's
I feel like it's going to come. I have one of my dearest friends. She lost her husband around the same time, 3 years from a cancer. And I've watched her grief journey, and, to hold space for a friend, interestingly enough, of course, I'm going to read with her. Like if we're going for a walk and he's there, like, I'm like, okay, Spence is showing me this or this. But where she is now, and it's interesting. It's still hard. It's still, and she's so beautiful in her faith and in her light and what she believes, but she also still misses him. And it's hard to know like what it would be like for us, when you don't have that, or like how to show up. So maybe we can offer some words of advice of things that people can say to a friend who's lost their spouse, or to lost a loved one, instead of making it about them. Because I know that she had a lot of that, can't call, I didn't know what to say, like not about you, it's about your friend. So would that be something that would be?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for opening that up. And I'll say, I'll put it out as, I think everyone is different in terms of what they need, and what's okay with them, but there are some kind of basics. So yeah, they're called grief vultures, or grief, someone who kind of takes over that space when you're wanting to speak or just have somebody. So there is that. And what your friend sounds like she may have experienced. For me, it was really, really, and it still is so hard when people would say, my heart's so broken for you, or, oh, I can't imagine how bad it hurts. If any attention was drawn to a broken heart, to pain, anything, because I am so empathic, any sort of negativity just brought me, even though it was all with love and, with good intentions, but it brought me down. My heart is so broken for you. Like, okay, well, my heart is so broken, and now I feel your broken heart. So, thanks for that extra layer, even though that, of course, was not the intention. There was also, it really hurt me when people, especially right in the beginning, would talk about Bruno in the past tense. So, days after his death, but even a year or 2 years after, and say, he was. To me, he is. And now it's been 3 years. And so I can say, like, he was, for example, he was from Argentina. He was an engineer, but he still is my husband. He still is Bruno. He still is loving. He still is incredible. And part of that is the connection that we have in being a medium. Like, I know that he still is. I have the evidence that gives me the confidence to say that he still exists. But even before that happened, and I guess this is for anyone who's supporting someone in grief who's just lost someone, our brains, our cognitive minds don't understand that our person has died for weeks, months, years, even. And so my brain did not understand that he had died it was like 7-8 months where I was finally like, oh my goodness, like Bruno's like, he's actually gone, like he is dead, physically dead.
Right.
And so to hear people talking about him already as a memory, where to me, my brain hasn't made that connection. There's just this, this total disconnect. For me, what was most helpful, and again, I'll say this in terms of what helped me because everyone is different, but my best friend, my mom, my sister, and so many of Bruno's and my friends as well, but my mom, my sister, and my best friend were really they were like my grief captains. And I had them write an email to everyone. I asked my best friend to write an email to all of my contacts, just getting bombarded with questions. And I said, please just tell everyone, or send this by Facebook, send this by, DM, whatever it is. Please tell people, no questions, no past tense, please no flowers. I did not want any flowers, anything like that would commemorate some sort of passing. That was my experience. And then I said, if anyone wants to say anything, please just tell me to tell them, or please tell them to tell me I love you, or just send a heart emoji. That's all I need.
Right. Yeah.
And then if there was space there to talk, then I did. But for me, I had 2 counselors that were incredible. And that is not the norm, as I've learned from other people who've gone through grief. Unfortunately, right. There's a lot of difficulty finding a really good counselor, but if you're going through grief, find someone who is trauma informed. Right. And then say in the beginning, if you're having spiritual experiences or intuitive experiences, don't feel like you can't tell them. I told my counselors upright in the beginning. I didn't understand it. And it was more because I was like, if I need to be, assessed in some way, please let me know, or let me know, tell me. And they just normalized and said, whatever you're experiencing is your experience. On my website, under the resources tab, I have tons of places of where to go to find counselors, support in grief. So if it's drlenorematthew.com, and it's the resources tab. So there's a lot there. Also on where to go for developing mediums, also where to go on suicide, suicidality, suicide loss, and also where to go on supporting survivors, including male survivors of child abuse and sexual abuse.
Your work is so important, Lenore. Like, again, just to circle back, like how God was showing me, like, this is a huge conversation that we're having. And I was so lit up, and I still am, like, everything is like lit up energetically because there's so much healing here. Yeah. One of the things I did with my friend Denise, after she lost her husband, was I kept things the same. And she just said it was like this normalizing, like, do you want to come for dinner? And, do you, like, I wasn't asking her, like, if she needed things. I would just more like invite and show up and share and just kind of holding space for, like, your friendship is still the same. It's just they need more love at this time. And again, like, don't not talk about, I didn't not talk about Spencer. I actually talked about Spencer and her mom. And, if there was a moment where there was a message or a hug or a little, like, love nugget, then I shared those so that she too was feeling it. And she felt safe to share her holy experiences as well. Yeah. Like, I felt Spencer, like, she didn't feel like she had to hide that, because most people that lose a spouse do have an experience and they don't know how to, say it out loud, like, I dreamt, or they're trying to get them in their dream, like, to normalize as best as we can that the soul's infinite, and it's infinite. And so that means we're here and we're with God, and that our loved ones are this light energy that we can connect with always.
Oh, so beautifully said. Yes, to all of that.
Yes. Well, I really hope our paths cross again, and maybe we can collab on something.
I would love that. You are such a love, such a light. I mean, you look like an angel. You are an angel.
You're so sweet.
Such a sweetheart. And I'm really honored to be able to share this conversation and just be in your energy as well.
Thank you. I told you this was an amazing episode and that you would love Dr. Lenore. Please definitely go check her out on Instagram. She's so lovely. I'm just so excited to have come across her, that Spirit brought us together. And I am really excited for the Angel Party. So come on, get your tickets. Link is below. And we are going to be going into the heavenly realm. This past week, I released a podcast, which was a meditation, a heavenly meditation that really tapped into your own healing abilities. If you didn't take a listen, definitely go listen to that. And if you want to go further and tap into healing more of your trauma, your pain, whatever you have going on, definitely we're going to be doing this in the Angel Party. It's a very profound healing experience. And receiving the messages from our departed loved ones lifts us and fills us. So I'm really excited about this journey. I haven't done one in over a year, so I'm really excited to be doing this again. And I cannot wait to see you there. My friend, you are loved unconditionally, and I hope you have a really beautiful rest of your day. God bless you.